Howdy folks, I hope you're doing well. I'm back in Hong Kong now and I have all of this gear on the desk just to give you an idea of what's been going on. I have the Sigma 200 f2 and the Leica 200 f2 to compare to my original Leica 200 f2. Then I've been shooting with these guys like crazy. I have the new Hasselblad X2D 2-100C and the 35-100 lens that I've been shooting with for a couple of months and I'm really loving it. I avoided putting my video out with the rush of other videos the other day and I'm still editing it. And I also have some other gear hidden just off camera that's not announced yet that I can't share with you, but for whatever reason, August and September are crazy busy times for announcements. Brace yourselves, there's a lot of great stuff coming in. You might want to speak to your bank manager about an overdraft. I'm kind of showing you all of that, not just to show off all the great gear I have, but to hopefully get a little bit of sympathy from you so that you understand I'm working on some great things and why today's video is not going to be going super deep on behind the scenes and test shots and stuff, but I just want to give you my thoughts having shot the Q3 and the RX1R Mark III quite a bit in the past while. I did an initial hands-on talking about the RX1R and its shortcomings and its price and my thoughts. And there's been a lot of commentary on it, and I want to essentially start this video with a throat clearing, an acknowledgement, clearing the air, that having used it more and traveled with it more and gotten off the spec sheet and gotten out of contrived shooting situations into real travel situations, I get it. I'm not saying it's worth the money, but I get the compromises that have been made here. Now, I did say in my previous video that I think reviewers looking at this compared to, say, an A7CR with a 35mm lens is the wrong comparison, because you're not buying this just to get the sensor and the focal length, so, you know, it's not a dollar for dollar comparison. I think Sony made all the compromises they have made in this, and there are a lot. I'm not saying it's for everyone, but I think they made it to keep it as small and light as possible, and people buying it want something as small and light as possible. And for those who are also willing to accept the compromises, then there's no other competition. So to finish that throat clearing before I talk you through the pros and cons of these, on my last trip to Kyrgyzstan, thank you for your comments lately. I've been getting in shape and I've lost a lot of weight over the last couple of years, but we did some pretty hardcore hiking that I was like struggling to get through, where I was carting around the Hasselblad and the new lens, and I was traveling with some friends of mine, and one of the friends took the Leica, one of the friends took the Sony. And I can tell you, on that kind of a day when you're at altitude and you're walking miles uphill, less weight is a plus. In the end, the Sony person using the Sony kept using it. The person with the Leica put it in their backpack and relied on their iPhone. It's not at all scientific. I'm just saying that I can see the value of this. And there are times where you want more than your iPhone just documenting or capturing memories for yourself, where you want something high quality, but you want it as light and portable as possible. I get it. I personally wouldn't spend the price that they're asking for it, but I get it. So now I wanted to run you through a couple of things here. In that scenario, the size really is better. But for day-to-day shooting, if I were going to be spending $5,000 up on an all-in-one camera system, I actually prefer the size, personally, of the Leica. It fits my hand better. If it's going to be around my neck hiking, then the small and light is great. Having said that, when I'm shooting something where I want good image quality, this is unbeatable, and you can kind of see we're not even in the same ballpark anyway. So I know I'm an atypical user probably, especially for the Sony. I'm willing to just about pass out from oxygen deprivation to make sure I have the best possible image quality that I can get on a shoot, and not everyone is. But, you know, like all reviews, this is subjective. In the hand, I have to say the Sony, they both feel supremely well built. Neither of them feel like they've skimped on materials. They both feel great. I actually have never liked the Leica Q shutter. It just feels squishy. I get it's a leaf shutter. I get they're quiet. This also has a leaf shutter. But the feedback from it, I've never really enjoyed it. That's probably my least enjoyed thing about the Q. It's not, and it feels like such a stupid thing to even care about, but it's not a satisfying click. The Sony I found super responsive and is a nice click, even though it's just the sound. For whatever reason, the button and the sound combo, I actually prefer it on the Sony. Both of them benefit from a thumbs up. Both of them benefit from a grip. We talked about accessory prices before, and I did the comparison on prices. One thing I overlooked in that was that the Leica actually comes with a hood, whereas Sony charges another $200 or $300 for that. So that actually brings the Sony and the Leica closer together in terms of price, but the Leica still does have a significantly more expensive price tag. In terms of the screen, I have to say, whatever you think of Leica, we think of it sometimes as a dentist camera or a poser's camera or whatever, or an absolute legendary war and documentary photography camera. But whatever you want to say about them, there's two things that I think are true for Leica. A couple of years ago, they had by far the broadest and most varied range of cameras on the market. They make Instax, they made small sensor cameras, full frame cameras, rangefinders, SLRs. They have medium format cameras. They just were in so many markets. So they're not a one-trick pony. And two, they're always nailing their EVFs and their screens. On every model I can think of, even back to the early SLs, they were always right at the cutting edge. Like, what's the highest resolution on the market? Leica probably has it or is tied for first place. The displays on this are fantastic, and it does add a little bit of a lip there, but having the articulated screen for me did come in handy, and I do find that useful in some shooting situations. But again, on that day of hiking, I don't think the person who was using this did miss that screen, that it wasn't so contrasty that doing that you couldn't see the screen. There will be times where you will miss that, but in that environment, which I think may be the use case for this camera, it wasn't such a big deal. Having said that, the EVF is kind of garbage on this, so definitely I would give the win on that metric to the Leica. The lens, this is going to come down to personal preference. They're both the same lens that have been around since the first generation. I personally prefer a 28mm. With the crop modes of this one, you get 35 as one of the options, and on the 35 you don't. But having said that, with the crop options, I really like that the Sony actually shows you your final field of view, whereas the Leica just puts the lines around it. It's kind of not ideal having, using a 75 or a 90 where you got this tiny little box in the center, but you're seeing the whole frame. I find it kind of challenging to compose with. The best I've seen actually does come in the Hasselblad range, where with your different crop modes, you can set the opacity to say 90%, so you can just grade out, see the rest of the frame when you're composing, say in X-Pan mode, or you can have it completely blacked out. That's kind of the Rolls Royce of this option. But overall, I would say for the lens, that actually factors in heavily to the value proposition, which I'll circle at the end. But they both have a macro mode. They're both absolutely high quality. Personally, because I prefer 28mm, and this one is a 1.7, it's faster, and the way the macro mode enables is nicer, and I think the manual focus here, having the focus scale on the Leica is nicer, I would give the win to there. I would give the, God, what happened to my voice? I would also give the win for the lens to the Leica, but it's going to come down to which focal length you prefer. Stabilization, Leica has it, Sony doesn't, win to the Leica. Video, neither of them are really video cameras, but the Leica is ahead on that as well. Battery, the Leica is ahead on that as well. So you really have to value the size to pick the Sony. You can just see the battery size difference on these. And given that this adds stabilization and a tilty screen and a bigger battery and all those things, it kind of it's clear why the Leica is bigger and heavier than the Sony, so there's really no mystery there. And it also points out the reverse of that. It would be absolutely ridiculous to say that this camera in this form factor should have those things, because I don't think it's within the possibility of engineering. I would personally be willing to have it grow a little bit for that though. That's, again, a personal preference. Now, there's a couple of ways to look at the pricing on these. Straight up, the Leica is more expensive. Is the stabilization and those different features worth it? To some people, yes. To other people, an extra $1,000, $1,500, whatever it is not worth the premium. But there's two more ways to look at it. The Leica hasn't grown from inflation and tariffs at the same percentage rate as the Sony over the last generation. The Sony had a big jump over that period. The Sony, whilst if you look at inflation and then also include the tariffs, the Sony is not too different from the previous generation. The rest of the Sony range hasn't increased in price at the same rate as this one, so it's still more expensive than the rest of the Sonys. And the third thing, which I think kind of may be unfair, but it does flavor our perception, is that Sony is an electronics maker who make great cutting-edge cameras, but there's nothing luxury about them. Leica is a luxury brand, and this is relatively an affordable model for them. This camera and lens all-in-one kit with good autofocus is less than the M series camera with nothing, with no possibility of autofocus. And if you do that, what would it cost comparison? An A7CR with a 35G master, let alone an f2 lens, would come out cheaper. Whereas a Leica 28mm 1.4 or 2 lens costs more than this whole camera again. So when you look at the what would I have to pay to get the equivalent of this, the Leica actually starts to look like a bargain. The 28mm f1.4 lens is horrendously expensive, and then you need another $8,000 or $9,000 on that to buy a digital M, and then you're still not getting any form of autofocus. So really, they're for different markets in a way, but if you're not doing crazy hiking, or if you have better stamina than me and my travel buddies, then the size and weight difference may not be worth it to you. And if you're already at that $5,000 to $6,000 with accessory price point, then getting the stabilization and the tilting screen and all of those things that this has, the better EVFs and the bigger battery, is possibly going to be a draw for a lot of people. The Sony, you get their incredible autofocus, you get a camera that kind of fits into their overall ecosystem, but it is kind of a parts bin bonanza of old pieces that have been reused, like the displays, which is kind of disappointing. But if you really want the smallest and lightest possible, this is it. Is it worth that price tag to you? I hope you're still with me. Apologies that this has been such a talk-heavy video. And just fun fact, I have a Hasselblad setup guide, I have a Sony setup guide, I also have a Nikon setup guide. You can check out all of those over at my website. The Polycameras merch for people who are shooting with more than one camera or more than one camera system is also in my link tree, as well as details on my upcoming trips, as well as Patreon Uncut, where you can join me behind the scenes on a bunch of different shooting. That was a lot of talk. I hope you enjoyed that one, folks. It's not my usual style of video, but just wait. We have some beautiful travel content coming soon with all of this different equipment that I'm looking forward to share with you. Again, leave me any questions and I'll see you soon.